feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, coming to you live a little bit earlier today, celebrating Labor Day, which is a great time for a fantasy football draft. And wouldn't you know it, in just a couple minutes, we are going to be kicking off a live redraft league with some of our listeners and friends. So Dennis and I will be both laying ourselves bare, making our playoff predictions and award predictions for the season, and trying to live draft a team that won't shame ourselves for the rest of the season. Dennis, are you up for this challenge?
Let's hope so. You know, I'm not sure if my old head can handle it. It was my idea to move them at the same time because I thought, what better for Labor Day than to do twice the amount of work in half the amount of time, right?
Is it work if you love what you do?
You know, probably not. So, and we love doing this, so we're gonna have lots of fun.
And I brought my Ted Lasso mug, so I'm ready. You know, I got to believe in myself.
I got my faded picture of me mug, so.
You're believing in yourself as well.
My wife got me a mug that said, and it literally said, "Here's pictures of people that you love the most," and it was all me. It's a lot of, this is our last draft before the start of the season, and you got a couple newbies in the draft and a couple inexperienced people, along with some veterans of our league. It's a nice mix. My 12-year-old is in it, and he did a mock draft yesterday in which he took Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the 8th round. So this should be interesting. He allegedly knows football, and I think he was just I don't know how far you got to scroll in the 7th round to get to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. That's what I want to know.
Well, that may not be a bad pick if something was to happen to Watson. He did look good in the preseason. And, especially with the rise of Superflex leagues, some of these teams it's not terrible if you have the roster space to grab some back-end players. I assume your son must be a Browns fan.
He was a Patriots fan growing up, but he also loved Odell and he loved Baker. I don't know that he has an NFL allegiance at this point. He gets inundated with Browns and Lions talk in this house. And so, that might have had something to do with it. Or maybe, just maybe, he's galaxy braining me and just totally going to crush this draft.
Maybe. I guess we will find out. Speaking of drafts, are you ready to kick this one off?
I am. Let's fire it up. I don't pick until what? It's funny because me and Jackie and Cole all pick back to back to back. I guess, as I say, yes, I'm ready. I should probably open up the app and get in the draft.
I know. I guess since I'm not sharing, I need to put I didn't have my sleeper sound on, but since we're going and talking and I'll be on other windows, I better do that or else I'm going to miss. So Jonathan, you are up. Our friend Matt will be up at pick number 2. He is still battling some illness, so he is not with us today. He's either battling illness or he wants to be able to come on in January and say he called Browns to the Super Bowl all along. So it'll be one or the other. Before we dive into our predictions, there isn't a ton of news. Obviously this is a little bit of the slow period where you get a little bit more focus on college football before the NFL season kicks off. But Mike Evans, it came out, his team has set a negotiating deadline for September 9th, which would be a day before the season starts, to negotiate a long-term contract. If they don't get it there, they will put their focus on this season and his opportunities in the future. Kind of a worrying sign, or do you think Tampa Bay may be looking at this as they're on the cusp of needing to rebuild?
I think so. This is a case of you've got a player that has been on your team for 10 years, and he has been kind of the heart and soul of the offense. He's going for his 10th straight 1,000-yard season, and you want to do right by him. But also the reality of the situation is this team stinks. Honestly, they should be looking to move both Evans and Godwin and just get, but it's easy to convince yourself that you can be competitive. And maybe in the NFC South they can. I get not wanting to negotiate in season. That's certainly a viable strategy, and lots of players do it. I don't think it's a distraction by any means. I think that Evans is going to go out there and he's going to play hard. I feel like they're going to go out of their way to get him his 10th straight 1,000-yard season, and he's probably moving on next year.
What up to you, Nightwing? Thanks for joining us here on Labor Day. Hopefully you at least you enjoy our playoff predictions, which are coming up. I tend to agree with you, Dennis. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I actually think Evans and the Buccaneers might not be a bad week one play, especially if he shuts down negotiations. He and Godwin coming out there. They open up against the Vikings, a team that has a good offense and is likely to put up points, but also a team that we know has what you might call a work in progress on defense. They didn't have a very good defense last year. So it's possible that even though we don't have incredible confidence in Baker and the Tampa Bay offense, for all of 2023, that week one could be kind of a nice week for those guys when you're looking at matchups. I started looking at some of the matchups, and I thought that was one of the more favorable ones. Well, the time has come. We are on the cusp of the season, which kicks off on Thursday. Hard to believe we are finally here. But Dennis and I are going to be making our playoff predictions and our awards predictions. This is one that's always fun to bookmark and come back to at the end of the season, or, maybe even in October. You never know. Last year, I think by October and November, Dennis and I were already trying to play down some of our predictions. We will also wrap up at the end talking about the Thursday night kickoff, which is a pretty darn good game. The Detroit Lions will be traveling to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we get to that, it is time for the Fearless playoff predictions. Dennis, I will let you kick off. Give me your 7 NFC playoff teams.
All right. So I have the San Francisco 49ers taking the NFC West, the Philadelphia Eagles taking the NFC East, my Detroit Lions taking the NFC North, and the New Orleans Saints being the cream of the crop of the NFC South. Got the Cowboys, the Giants, and what's that other one? I think the Packers. Oh, no, Vikings. Cowboys, Giants, and Vikings getting the wild card.
I was going to say, if you can't remember, fortunately for us, we wrote it down. My NFC slate, I'm going to go in order of seed. I have the Eagles winning the East again, being the number 1 seed, 49ers winning the West, being the number 2 seed. I think those are still the two probably best teams in the NFC. Just love the rosters. Big injuries can always change things, but they were the best 2 teams last year. I think they still are. Number 3 seed, I have the Detroit Lions winning the North as well. I really loved the energy they brought last season. I think they have a good roster. I think they made some good moves. Then on the 4 seed, Somebody has to win the South. Somebody
Yeah.
has to win the South. I am pushing my chips in on the Atlanta Falcons. I think they can get to 9 wins. I like Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. A lot of it's going to come down to Desmond Ridder. But they did make a few moves on defense. You know, they went and got Jesse Bates at safety. They tried to make some improvements. So the Falcons are the ones I'm going in on. Dallas Cowboys I have as the 5th seed, Minnesota Vikings 6th seed, and the New York Giants the 7th seed. So a lot of the same teams. But, you know, every year you have a team that goes from worst to first in their division. If the Falcons pull it off, they were technically 4th last year. So they would be my worst to first team. Dennis, how about the AFC side of the draw?
So in the AFC, you know, the best teams are in the AFC. I mean, it's pretty top heavy there. I have the Chiefs winning the AFC West. Until they don't, I think it's hard to go.
You are on the clock, by the way, if you need to take a second to make your pick.
Why is my thing not?
I don't know, but it definitely looks like you.
Yeah, my app isn't keeping up.
I don't want to hose you.
No worries. I appreciate it.
We knew this was going to be exciting. Well, Dennis makes his pick. I can jump in and do. I agree. The AFC is kind of loaded. Oh, that's a nice pick, Dennis.
You're gonna zig when everybody zags, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I agree. The AFC is pretty loaded as a conference. You know, I think the biggest thing for me, I think there are going to be quite a few teams that finish over 500 that are in the competition in the AFC that won't make the final field. I have the Bengals as the number 1 seed, winning the North, the Bills as the number 2 seed, winning the East, the Chiefs as the number 3 seed, winning the West, and the Jaguars as the 4 seed, winning the South. Then I had the Chargers at 5, making the field, and that could set up a really interesting rematch of Chargers-Jaguars, which was a crazy game from last year. I have the Dolphins as the 6th seed. I think they are going to push the Bills, but that'll be a close one. And then I had to do it. I went with the Denver Broncos as my number 7 seed.
I saw that and I was like, oh, what a homer pick. It could be.
You know what? If they had real coaching, they might have been in there last year.
Yeah, I don't hate it. So anyways, back to me. I've got the Chiefs at 1. I got the Bengals at 2. Not going to lie, I am a little nervous to see how Burrow comes out, and hopefully that calf doesn't re-aggravate. He seems to look good, but that team has a high-flying offense. Got the Bills at 3, winning the East. Jaguars at 4, winning the AFC South. Wild card teams, heavy on the AFC East this year. I got the Dolphins and the Jets also both making the playoffs, with the Chargers coming out of the West.
Yeah, and for me, I have the Jets winning 10 games and just being out. Same kind of with the Ravens. I think in the Browns, I actually think the AFC North could have 4 teams finish over 500, just kind of all beating each other up. I think there's a whole bunch of teams in the AFC that if they played in the NFC would probably be in the playoffs and might not make it here. But there are some tough schedules, some tough divisions. So, Dennis, who do you have coming out of the NFC and making the Super Bowl?
So, you know, when I kind of was playing out the schedule and seeing what would these teams do come playoff time. So in the wild card round, I've got the Dolphins over the Jags. Again, I feel like that was a coin flip. It's 4 against 5. It could go either way, but I have the Dolphins over the Jags. I've got the Bills over the Jets and the Bengals over the Chargers. I want to believe in the Chargers and Kellen Moore, but I just feel like they're going to have a good year because they have so many weapons. But next year is going to be their year. So I've got were we doing AFC or NFC?
NFC.
Oh,
but you can do the AFC and then I'll do the AFC.
Sorry,
doesn't really matter.
Green had it on top here. So, you know, obviously the Chiefs with the bye. Going into week number 2 of the playoffs, I've got the Bills over the Bengals. I feel like the Bills window is closing, and they're going to be doing everything they can to make it. They want to get there. I've got the Chiefs over the Dolphins. It's the Dolphins I feel like there's just a little bit too much of a one-dimensional aspect to them. You know who's getting the ball. It's Hill, it's Waddle, and the running backs are interchangeable, but it's Hill and Waddle. And can they be stopped? I don't know, but if somebody can outscore them, it's going to be Kansas City. And then Kansas City and Buffalo, I've got Kansas City. As much as I wanted, I tried to find a reason to get Buffalo back to the Super Bowl after losing 4 straight eons ago. I wanted to get Buffalo back and have them, finally win one, but I just couldn't do it. And so I've got the Chiefs coming out of the AFC. I know it's the chalky pick. The only fly in the ointment is Chris Jones. If he holds out all season, taking the best player off a mediocre defense could bode not so well for the Kansas City Chiefs.
So for me in the AFC, first round, I had the Chargers going over the Jaguars this year, making the leap. I actually picked the Dolphins to upset the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs, and then the Bills to take out the Broncos. In the second round, that would set up, Chargers, Bills. I had the Bills winning that and the Bengals beating the Dolphins, and then the Bengals topping the Bills in the AFC Championship game to make it to the Super Bowl. So you went with Bills, I believe. I went with Bengals.
I thought I marked. No, I went with Chiefs.
You went with Chiefs. Sorry,
yeah. I dropped it. So there's this part.
Oh no, you changed. So I was looking at your sheet.
Oh, there is a part of me that loves dynasties, and I think right now the Chiefs are a dynasty in the making, if not a dynasty already. And so I've got them coming out.
So how do you feel about the NFC?
Oh, wait, you know what I did? I'm looking down at the Thursday night game. I did pick the Bills.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, you're welcome to change your mind.
I'm like, dang it. Well, all of those things I said are true, but apparently in my picking, I did find a way for the Bills to get there. I was like, man, I'm looking at it and I'm going, dang it. All right. See what I get for, only scanning my notes. No, so, and in part, it's because of the Chris Jones holdout. I think that is going to present an issue. I feel like he's going to pull a Le'Veon Bell if he doesn't get what he wants. And he is one of the most dominant defensive linemen in the league. And so I'm a little bit worried that he's going to cause this defense to underperform severely. Do they have offensive firepower? They do. They've got a ton of it. But in the end, I think the Bills are going to be a little more of a balanced team. And I think Josh Allen gets them to the Super Bowl. We can edit that out, right?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it now is you've really managed to hedge your bets, because if the Chiefs or the Bills make it, I mean, you were all over them.
Right.
I'm sticking with mine of the Bengals.
All right, let me get back here to the NFC and see if I can get myself back on track here. So in the wild card round, I've got Dallas beating the Saints. The Saints just aren't. They're going to win the division, but it's going to be a crappy division. I don't see anybody coming together and with a real high overperformance. There'll be a couple fantasy assets from the Saints and Olave, Juwan Johnson. Jamal Williams is a late round running back darling. But I like Dallas. I think they're trying to prove something to themselves, and they're going to, I guess what they're trying to prove is they can win a playoff game, and luckily for them, they're going to get the Saints. We've got the Giants over the Lions. As much as I wanted to put the Lions ahead, I still think the Lions have some work to do. The receiving core of the Lions, basically, one of the only receiving cores worse than the Lions are the Giants.
Just so you know, you're up.
Dang it.
I know.
I might have to log out and log back in.
Well, I will. Well, Dennis makes his pick before he comes back to doing his playoff picks. I will just recap. We are just about to finish the second round. First round. This is a super flex redraft league. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts went as the first three picks. Then Dennis was able to snag Justin Jefferson at 4. Then we got Burrow and Lamar Jackson at 5, 6. Jamar Chase went at 7. Deshaun Watson went at 8. I grabbed Justin Herbert at 9. Our friend John Hamler's got Christian McCaffrey at 10. He must have been psyched to know he's a big 49ers fan. Then Tyreek Hill went at 11. Aaron Rodgers went at 12 on the wraparound. They grabbed Joe Mixon to pair with Rodgers, Justin Fields to pair with Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler to pair with Christian McCaffrey. Great running back start there. I went and grabbed Nick Chubb, which I'm sure broke a lot of people's hearts down the line behind me, but I'm with Dennis. Think he could be a top running back to pair with Herbert. Travis Kelce went next, paired with Deshaun Watson. Trevor Lawrence went, paired with Jamar Chase. Then Cooper Kupp went to pair with Lamar Jackson. A.J. Brown to pair with Joe Burrow. And then Dennis just grabbed Tua Tagovailoa. We have a third round reversal, so it'll be a little bit before Dennis comes up again. So that should give you a little bit of time to finish your NFC playoff field.
I went ahead and pulled it up on my computer.
Yeah.
So hopefully I don't know why.
I just don't want you to end up taking an auto pick because I know you're actually trying to do it.
So when I was talking about the NFC.
Yeah, and you were talking about the Lions game.
So as much as I want to be able to move the Lions forward, I said last year I felt like the Giants were a year early. I think they're going to have a good year this year. Adding Darren Waller to that team gives them a wide receiver 1. I get it. He plays tight end, but he's going to be the top receiver there. They've got some wide receivers that need to step up, and we'll kind of see what happens with that. I'm not concerned. I think, the way they played last year with the cast of characters they had at wide receiver, I think they have plenty of depth. I think they're going to be just fine. Their Giants' top wide receiver will probably be a wide receiver 3 for fantasy. So I've got the Giants beating the Lions, and then I've got the Eagles over the Vikings. The Vikings were a tough call. I think their defense is going to be better, but I still think that it's not going to be great. I think Brian Flores helps a lot. Questions abound about the running game. How much do we really believe in Alexander Madison? But in the end, the Eagles, they are the team right now defending NFC champions. I like the Eagles a lot. So that's who I have advancing.
All right. Well, for me, for the NFC, I got to pull up my playoff sheet. So first round, I have the Cowboys over the Falcons. I think they'll be the top wild card. I think the Falcons, if they get in the playoffs, that'd be kind of the win for them. The other matchups, I have the Lions facing the Vikings again. I actually had the Lions advancing, and then the 49ers hosting the Giants, had the 49ers advancing. In the next round, I had the 49ers topping the Lions, the Eagles topping the Cowboys. And then in the NFC Championship game, I have the 49ers pulling off the trick and beating the Eagles to set up a 49ers and Bengals Super Bowl. You could call it straight out of the 80s, but I thought that could be a little bit of fun.
So my whole draft thing got me confused, so I only did that first round of the playoffs. So let me go back through and finish the NFC playoffs. I'm shook, man. I am shook.
Well, I just made my pick. Fortunately, I heard the dinging in my ear, and I'm like, oh man, I bet that's me.
I've got the Eagles over the Cowboys, and then the Niners over the Giants to set up Eagles and Niners. And I have the 49ers beating the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl.
So we both picked San Francisco. We picked Bengals and Bills. Who do you have winning said Super Bowl?
Let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. I've got the Bills. To me, it's a heartwarming story team makes it 4 straight years, loses in crushing fashion. They go in the tank. They have some, they wander around the desert for a while, and now they've got a rookie. They draft a big arm quarterback out of Wyoming that is wild as heck and can't seem to hit the broadside of a barn. And he ends up with let me draft that dude. He ends up with a coach that believes in him and rebuilds him, and he's now accurate. And I like Buffalo. I'm going with Buffalo. I think it's a great story.
I also picked the AFC team over the 49ers. I went with the Bengals getting the win. They were there a couple of years ago when they came up short against the Rams. I think they can get there and they can get the win. And, it's going to set up a great thing. I would love for, I wouldn't be sad about your prediction either. I've been in on the Bills the last couple of years. I don't know if they have quite enough to make it all the way. But, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes seem like they're all going strong and are keeping their teams in contention kind of going forward. So that is our playoff and Super Bowl predictions. Dennis has the Bills over the 49ers. I have the Bengals over the 49ers. And I'm sure by the end of the season, it's going to be like the Tennessee Titans over the Washington Commanders or something. And we're going to be,
the Niners, with Bosa's holdout, that gives me pause. There's is Purdy really just a mediocre quarterback that had a small sample size of overproduction? Those are legitimate questions. But by hook or by, I think putting San Francisco in the Super Bowl for me is betting that Christian McCaffrey plays at least 16 games. And by and large, that offense stays healthy.
Well, before we get to some of our award predictions, do you want to take a minute and give us your thoughts? We are now about halfway through the 4th round on the draft. I kind of ticked off a lot of the picks in the first 2 rounds, but Dennis, what stands out to you so far?
Trash Talkers 67 is looking, they're showing, it feels like they're showing their allegiance a little bit, starting off with Watson in the 1st and Cooper in the 3rd. She did pull in Travis Kelce in the 2nd, so she is building a team that looks good to go. Snake Eyes out of the 112 going Aaron Rodgers at the 112. A little inside info. He is a lifelong Packers fan, and unlike you, he doesn't hate former Packer staff members that went to New York.
It's not because they were a former Packers staff member that I dislike him intensely.
I know. But then he stacked up 2 running backs with Mixon and Barkley. So if I were him, I'd be looking at quarterback here at the turn. You're looking pretty good here with Herbert and Prescott. I think that's solid. And then, Nick Chubb is my RB1 this year. And it'll be interesting to see, okay, you went with Gibbs. I was curious if you were going to go hero RB. Or if you're going to go robust RB. So it looks like you're either leaning into robust RB or you're going, what's the term I'm looking for? You're leaning balanced. So we'll see if you go wide receiver.
I feel like for so many years, I was like running backs don't matter. And you know what? They do if you want to win.
Right.
I'm going to be honest. They matter a lot if you want to win because people aren't lying. You can take a little bit of a haircut off your top end wide receivers and manage to make it work. But if you have nothing but Jerome Ford as your running back too, which I do on one of my dynasty teams, you're probably not going anywhere.
So I was hoping, I started Jefferson, Tua in the 2nd, Waddle in the 3rd. I was hoping that Cousins would keep falling. I think he went a little bit early. John got him at the what was it, the 3-3. So he got me on that 3rd round reversal. I feel like if it hadn't have been 3rd round reversal, I'd have got him. But then I probably wouldn't have gotten Waddle, who I took in the 3rd round there. I got Ramondre as my RB1. I feel good about Ramondre. I know Zeke is there, but Zeke is going to get some short yardage goal line work and basically keep Ramondre fresh. And Ramondre was RB7 last year. So if he doesn't wear down, he should be able to at least be RB7 again. So I like that. I think CJ Stroud went a little bit early. I'd have probably taken Richardson or maybe any number of several quarterbacks over Stroud. But build a team you want to play with.
Well, let's transition a little bit into some of our award predictions. So we are going to make our prediction for MVP, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Dennis, I will let you kick it off with your award predictions.
All right. So MVP, I'm gonna ride that Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately, the MVP is basically a quarterback award, and if Allen puts them in position to be able to get to and win the Super Bowl, I know it's a regular season award. I'm going with Josh Allen, and as much as I wanted to go with Sean McDermott as Coach of the Year on the back of that quarterback run, I think Dan Campbell getting the Lions into the playoffs and playing well, I think Campbell is going to end up winning the Coach of the Year. And let's face it, Campbell just has a better publicist. He's all over. He's more exciting in the press. People talk about him. So I like Dan Campbell. I think he's going to end up winning the Coach of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year. I know he's not starting going into the season, but if he plays, I don't know how you can not go with Damar Hamlin. Is it fair? Maybe not. There are players coming back off of injuries that maybe have higher priority contributions to their team than Hamlin may have. But just given the way, his season ended last year and everything he went through, if he's back and on the active roster playing as a backup, I like Damar Hamlin to win it. And then Offensive Rookie of the Year, I tried to find a reason not to go chalk. And I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, but I gave it to Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to live up to the billing of being the number 8 overall draft pick in the NFL draft. Does that mean Algier goes away? No, Algier is going to still get some run and some pub, but Bijan is a well-balanced, very versatile back, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, and I think our award predictions probably will make some sense with what we're drafting and with our playoff predictions. I went with Joe Burrow as MVP. If you followed along with our rankings, I actually had him as my QB1 for redraft rankings. I just think he's going to have a good season. I'm just on the Bengals this year, so that's a part of it. Dennis and I have the same pick for Coach of the Year. I also went with Dan Campbell. I thought he was a strong contender last year with the way they finished. Had that game against Green Bay been enough to get them into the playoffs, he probably would have gotten it last year. But came up just a little bit short of getting it last year. I think he probably will get it this year. I think that they are a team that's going to win their division. For Comeback Player of the Year, your pick of Damar Hamlin is a great pick. I hadn't thought about that. I went with Javonte Williams. I think that he is poised, looking pretty strong, coming back off of injury, could be in line for a huge season with Denver. So that was just the kind of who I went with there. And then I think Bijan would be a great contender, probably Anthony Richardson, for the numbers that he'll likely put up, even if the Colts aren't a great team. But I ended up going with Jahmyr Gibbs because I think the three of those guys are going to put up some good numbers. I gave the edge to Gibbs. I think his team will fare a little bit better getting into the playoffs. But I don't think you can go wrong with the pick you made there of Bijan Robinson. I think those two guys are both going to be in for pretty good season. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So it'll be exciting to see how all of that plays out. So that is kind of our award predictions. We do actually have a game this week. I know you are excited about that. Your Lions getting the opening night game. Are you kind of bummed about the matchup that they have?
Not at all. So when they played the Chiefs before, it's a shootout, and the Lions' defense last year was terrible. They added some players this year. It's still going to be, it's not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, and I expect it to be an exciting, high-scoring game. It'll give us a little bit of a clue about how Ben Johnson is really going to use Jahmyr Gibbs. He talked earlier last week about, they're going to use him everywhere. But then when you look at how he was actually used in the preseason, he played 0 snaps out of the slot. I like the Lions' chances to win. I just think that it's, in the end, it's so hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes. Jared Goff is, it's a road game. Goff is starting to approach Ben Roethlisberger status with the home road splits. The Lions wide receiver core, they're missing Jamison Williams. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown and a bunch of dudes that
which I didn't realize Amon-Ra St. Brown had a minor ankle injury. That gives me a little pause too.
Yeah, and they got Laporta starting at tight end, and I get it. He's showing out well. But I think the offense is going to score some points. I just think the defense is going to give up more. Travis Kelce, it'll be interesting to see what approach teams try to take this year. But Kelce's the guy. We had Kadarius Toney go surprisingly early, almost towards the end of the 5th round in our draft here, and it's one of those picks where you're like, that could be a league-winning pick if Toney can stay healthy. And it's also like, do you want to take the risk? Like, I looked at, let's see, you took Jonathan Taylor.
No, I took Javonte Williams.
Oh, Javonte Williams. I looked so hard at Jonathan Taylor where I took Dobbins.
I don't know if has Taylor gone. I don't think he has
not. And I'm like, am I ready to take that risk? And I was like, man, no, I don't think I am. And so I just couldn't pull the trigger. There's part of me that's like, is it just a contract dispute? Well, they let him go on PUP. He was working with his own people trying to get that ankle right. I honestly, I've got concern that ankle is a bigger issue than we might have expected. And that's why teams wouldn't give the Colts what they wanted in a trade for Jonathan Taylor. And that gives me pause. And so I like what Dobbins looked like coming off of the injury last year. He didn't have burst, but his vision was there and he was explosive. He just didn't have any long speed. So I went Dobbins over Jonathan Taylor. Now, if Taylor makes it back to me, I got to be honest, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass on him in the 7th round. As much as I probably need a 3rd wide receiver.
I mean, that's the thing. He could come back and still have a good season, but there's also a part of me that is now legitimately concerned that he doesn't really play this season, because will he play for the Colts? They don't have very long once he comes off PUP to get him traded. I doubt they're going to outright release him. Somebody saved you that.
Michael Lewis just took him.
Yeah, saved you that heartache. But it is definitely, it's definitely a question.
Yeah, I was a lot more comfortable drafting Taylor as my RB3 than my RB2. So Michael has Travis Etienne. He's got a little bit of a 0 RB build going on. He started off with Tyreek Hill, Justin Fields, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, Travis Etienne, Kenny Pickett, and then Jonathan Taylor. I don't hate it, especially if Taylor pans out. That could, if Taylor pans out, that could bite me in the butt.
Yeah, big risk, big reward. But potentially going forward. So for Thursday night's game, it's week 1. All the teams are playing. Theoretically, you have pretty much your entire roster available, unless you were rostering Jonathan Taylor or Jerry Jeudy or a couple of those players that probably aren't going in week 1. Who are you comfortable starting in this game for the Chiefs and for the Lions?
So definitely Amon-Ra. And in Superflex, I'm going to put Jared Goff out there. The last 3 Thursday night games have been barn burners, averaging 51 points a game. And I think that it's likely to get to be another high-scoring game. And so Amon-Ra makes me very comfortable. Goff in the Superflex. But Montgomery is the real wild card because he can play on all 3 downs. He's been a 3-down back, and I think we may see Montgomery and Gibbs on the field together. And it'll be interesting to see how they use them if they're both on there. How often is Gibbs split out wide? Will Montgomery split out wide? Montgomery is an excellent pass catcher. And while you're not going to send him out on a 9 route, those short to intermediate routes Montgomery is good at. Probably as a low-end RB2 or flex, I'm very comfortable starting both Gibbs and Montgomery. I'm going to pass on starting Laporta. As much as I got to see something. I got to see how that team plays out. Rookie tight ends are notoriously slow. They flash. I think in Hawkinson's rookie season, like his first game was like 11 catches or something crazy. But then the rest of the season, it was very hit or miss. On Kansas City, I'm down for, I think Sky Moore puts up 1,000-yard season. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1. Smog the Dog in our draft clearly thinks it's going to be Kadarius Toney. Toney brings the explosiveness that Sky Moore doesn't bring. Could both of them get 1,000 yards? I don't think so with Travis Kelce. I think Kelce is going to be a target hog. For me, I'm looking for more consistency from the wide receiver, and I feel like I'm going to get that out of Sky Moore more so than Kadarius Toney. But I freely admit Toney could be like Odell Beckham. He could have that kind of year. He's just got that kind of athletic ability. He's just so fragile. Pacheco is a flex-worthy starting running back, a flex-worthy start at running back. You're obviously starting Mahomes and Kelce. The real wild card is going to be Jerick McKinnon. Is he going to be used like he was the first 12 games of last season or the last 5 games of last season? Because one of those options is way, 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 way better than the other. And I feel like Pacheco has worked a lot on some of the things that are going to keep him on the field. So if you have a 3 flex league, I'm probably saying, yeah, you're going to start McKinnon. But if it's a traditional league, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 to 2 flexes, I don't think McKinnon makes it in your lineup.
Yeah. So for me, for the Lions, that home road split is a real deal. For Goff, they aren't tracking to have Chris Jones, which could be helpful. The Chiefs don't have the greatest defense. In Superflex, he might be a consideration for me, but I would have him as lower end kind of QB2 option. It really depends on what the makeup of your roster is and the makeup of your QB room is, because in week 1, you might have a better option. The 2 that I'm most confident starting for Detroit, I'm starting Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I actually am starting Jahmyr Gibbs. I like his potential for big plays. I think Detroit's going to need to put up some points in this game. I'm probably a little less bullish on David Montgomery just to see how it shakes out. But I'm with you. I'm not throwing Laporta or Marvin Jones out there in week one. I would think you've got some other options for the Chiefs. Mahomes and Kelsey for me are no-brainer starts. I actually would consider starting both running backs, McKinnon and Pacheco. I think McKinnon is going to be a big part of what they do. I'm staying away from the wide receivers in this first week. I want to see what it looks like. Tony was banged up in the off season. We didn't see a lot from them. One of those guys is going to end up being good, but it might take a couple of weeks for you to feel confident about any of them. And again, for week one of the NFL season, I would think you have some options to consider. So Dennis, who do you think wins Thursday night?
I'm going with the Chiefs. I think that it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I do like the Chiefs to win it. I think they win it comfortably. I don't think it's going to be a nail-biter, but it's the Chiefs for me.
I am also going with the Chiefs. In these Thursday night kickoff games where the defending Super Bowl champion plays, only 2 defending Super Bowl champions have ever lost that. One was the Giants, coming off one of Eli's Super Bowls, lost to the Dallas Cowboys in kind of a rivalry game. The only other defending champion who's ever lost the Thursday night kickoff was the Ravens with Flacco, when they were not allowed to play at home because of the Baltimore Orioles, and ended up coming to Denver in Peyton Manning's 7 touchdown game. So both those you would say are a little bit fluky. Typically, the atmosphere and everything favors that home team that's hanging their championship banner and getting the victory there on opening night. I think the same is going to hold true for the Chiefs. Well, Dennis, before we get out of here today, you want to give us some thoughts and some updates on our draft? We are now into the 9th round.
Yeah. I like what John Weber's doing. He was a little late to the draft and got auto-picked a couple picks, but he started out from the 101 with Mahomes, Wilson. Yeah. Then he tacked on Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard, Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers. Jordan Love is his second quarterback in the 5th round. I think Love is going to be a good quarterback. Maybe not great, but I think he's going to be good. 7th round, he added Drake London. So now he's for John, it's about wide receiver depth and getting a tight end. Smog the Dog's making some questionable picks. So Bennett Half is my wife, and she went 2 tight ends, but yet hasn't drafted a running back yet. I think that's concerning.
Are you saying running backs are important?
I think you need at least a couple. But again, it seems like she keeps getting caught at the end of runs and isn't necessarily reaching for running backs. I think at some point you're going to have to. Who knows? She could end up getting a nice stretch of 3 or 4 running backs in the back half of the draft. Michael Lewis, I like where he's at, in Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne. Those are some decent running backs, but I love the wide receiver core, Tyreek Lamb and Devontae Smith. It's my turn, and I move my screen. All right. So what are we? We're in the 10th round, 9th round at the 9:09. I'm looking at Marquise Brown, Jordan Addison, Treylon Burks, Brandon Cooks, Quentin Johnston. I'm thinking I want to go wide receiver. Burks, Cooks, Johnston are all kind of a reach. I'm not sure how much I believe in the Arizona offense. There's talk that Clayton Tune might actually start this week. I've got Justin Jefferson, so I'm going to stay away from Jordan Addison. I think Marquise Brown is the show, and they're going to be playing from behind. And so I'm going to go with Marquise Brown as my wide receiver 4. So I'm sitting on Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Godwin, and Marquise Brown. And I don't have any bye week overlap, so I didn't screw that up.
Oh, you just made me. I have not been watching bye weeks. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you going to do?
Yep.
All right. Well, we got this is actually Team Snakeheads, I believe is what he said in the comments. Gambling on need. Gambling on Reed. Thinks he's going to be awesome this season. And, that there's certainly quite a few people, I was reading one fantasy analyst that was posting some stuff on Twitter today that they actually thought Reed was going to eat significantly into Christian Watson. So that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I like Reed a lot. He's shown good in preseason. And my concern is that Dubs has come on. I know Dubs is a little dinged up, but Christian Watson is I think he's going to be the big play guy. Dubs the possession guy, Reed the slot guy. There could be some production. The team has to grow, though. It has to gel pretty quickly because they are young and they have a first-year starting quarterback. But I do like Reed. I think he's got a ton of potential.
Well, we will be finishing up the draft. Be curious to see how it comes out, but that'll do it for us today. Hopefully you bookmark this episode so you can come back and check out the predictions. Dennis and I are going to get some selective amnesia unless our picks pan out, and then you will be hearing a lot about it. Excited to have football back on Thursday. But until then, Dennis, people are going to have some free time this afternoon and maybe the next couple of days. What can they do?
Go to your favorite podcast platform, give us a like and a subscribe, download that podcast, listen at your leisure while you're working around the yard, hitting the gym, all that stuff. Leave us a rating and review. We appreciate those. Have a wonderful Labor Day.
Yes, you do that. Enjoy the game on Thursday night. Be back on Friday to preview the Sunday slate. Until then, you guys have a great Labor Day.